I have to read this because I could not get through it in 5 minutes otherwise. All right, I was anticipating an enjoyable dinner conversation with my son, Matt, who had come home for the weekend during his sophomore year at University of California, Irvine. However, what I thought would be an enjoyable conversation took a very abrupt turn when he described a conference he had just attended with a new campus ministry group that he had joined. He shared with me how the conference speakers and the activities they'd been participating in had opened his eyes to the ongoing prevalence of discriminatory practices against people of color. In fact, he said, I think that our family is racist. Shocked, I responded, well, that might be true of a member or two of our extended family, and I actually had one in mind. And to that he replied, no, Mom, our immediate family, including you. I was stunned and hurt, and I tried to defend myself by appealing to the kindness and compassion that I try to extend to everyone, regardless of race, gender, age, color. But emotions kept rising in our family table as he further explained, I'm trying to explain to you something that's much deeper and much more subtle. And then he said, you know, Mom, you could actually start reading some of these books that I've been reading. I'd be willing to share them with you. And so I put a little smile on my face and said, sure, I'd love that. Thinking inside, I think he's mixed up in some cult or crazy fanatical Christian group, and I'll read these books and figure out what went wrong. So I started reading books, and some of the books that I dove into were The Heart of Racial Justice. Why are all the black kids sitting together in the cafeteria? Being white in a multi-ethnic world. And as I did so, I was awakened to the pain and discrimination that I had been completely oblivious to. And as I let my heart move from this place of initial resistance and defensiveness to being willing to look at someone else's perspective that felt new and awkward and uncomfortable, I was increasingly troubled by the ideas I was encountering. And as I did so, I couldn't help but wonder, Lord, is this happening at Biola? Is this happening to our students? Are these stories similar to what students in our campus have experienced? And so I reached out to Glenn Kenosha, and I started to attend some of the multi-ethnic program events, and I started listening to the stories of students of color and faculty of color. And I came to the very sad conclusion that, yes, their stories did closely parallel the things that I had been learning about and hearing from my son. And the more I was willing to say, let me lay aside my previous ideas, my own conceptions of things, my own defensiveness, and let me hear, God began to break my heart and reveal my ignorance. And what I began to understand is that structures and systems in our society marginalize some groups of people and privilege others. And that simply because I was born with white skin, I had dimensions of privilege and opportunity that others did not. So my son's very blunt accusation started me on a journey that had pretty significant implications. As my heart became more sensitized to these issues, I started asking God, how am I supposed to change? So first he changed my topic. I was working on my doctoral dissertation, and he directed me to change my topic to study how could faculty at Christian universities demonstrate more culturally competent behaviors and teaching practices. I began serving on Biola's Diversity Leadership Committee and looking for how could I help resolve some of the racial inequities on our campus. I started adjusting the content, guest speakers, discussions that were happening in my class, and told my students, I want to learn this with you, help me. And we had great dialogue together as I began to understand. And then I started making friendships intentionally with people who came from completely different backgrounds than me. And I was so humbled by how deeply they enriched my life. And I did come to the conclusion that the campus group that had so significantly challenged my son actually wasn't a cult. They were actually doing transformative work to help Christians engage in racial reconciliation and justice. And if you're curious, it was InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. So a few weeks ago, I don't know if any of you got to hear, but we had theologian Miroslav Volf on our campus, and he challenged us with this statement. In order to keep our allegiance to Jesus Christ pure, we need to nurture commitment to the multicultural community of churches. And I've just realized as I've been on this journey that we serve a God who so obviously delights in diversity. And if you have any doubt about that, the scientists have actually discovered 422,000 different varieties of flowering plants, 950,000 species of insects, and I could have done with a lot less of those, hundreds of thousands of varieties of marine life. And this diversity daily is a visual enrichment to our lives. But what I have found is when you step outside of your comfort zone and you encounter the diversity of humankind, you see the faces and the stories of people who aren't like you. They have the power to actually illuminate aspects of God's character and being that otherwise you would never encounter. And so my life is richer for the journey that I've been on as I explored the true meaning of the accusation my son had made.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.